Thank you. Listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true self. It's an expression that Buddhists use. And true self, it's a lifelong journey to discover your true self, and that's what we're doing here. This is morning meeting. We meet once a week on Tuesdays. It's very different than assembly, which meets Wednesday and Saturday, and it's the same time, but it's our sacred time together, and we can explore and trying to define that word as the year goes on. But sacred, it's a time apart, a time to reflect in a busy world where we're always reacting, but stopping, reflecting. I spoke a little bit about 9/11 last Saturday. We had all those poignant stories. We have the ongoing pandemic. We have climate disruption, we have climate change, lots of storms. We have all kinds of things going on, a terrible war in Afghanistan that's ending. But this is the place of refuge where we come to elevate ourselves to a higher level of consciousness, a higher way of seeing. And one of the problems with Western education, it's been this way for a long time, it's very cerebral, it's very neck up. So this is a place where we delve into the heart level. We come down. Many mystics and all of the world's traditions and native traditions talk about the greatest journey you and I can make. It's from the head to the heart. And so that's what we're doing here. We're going in deep into this, into a depth dimension, not just here. So let me begin with probably the greatest cellist of the last century. The early part was a Spanish cellist named Pablo Casals. And he said this: each second we live is a new and unique moment of the universe. So this moment together right now is new and unique. It will never happen again. And we teach, and what we do, what do we teach our children? We teach our children that 2 and 2 make 4, and the capital of France is Paris. When will we teach our children what they are? We should say to each of them, do you know who you are? And he says, you are a marvel. You are unique. In all the years and all the centuries and all the millennia, there has never been another person like you. There's never been another Rev G, for good or bad, and never will again. There'll never be another one of you, ever. Your legs, your arms, your clever fingers, he says, the way you move, you may become a Shakespeare, a Michelangelo, a Beethoven. You have the capacity to do anything. This isn't cliche, I believe this. Yes, you are a marvel. And when you grow up, can you then harm one who is, like you, a unique marvel? You must work. We must all work to make the world worthy of all children. So keep that in mind. So I want to tell you a story. It's an ancient myth. It comes out of the Hindu and Buddhist tradition. You can find it in what the sacred scriptures of the Hindus call the Vedic Scriptures. You find it also in many of the Buddhist texts in Southeast Asia. And it starts off with the god Indra. Now, if you know your mythology a little bit, Zeus would be a counterpart in Greek mythology, Odin or Thor in Nordic. All the cultures and continents of the world have their counterparts to Indra. Far, far away in the abode of the great god Indra, king of heaven, hangs a wondrous vast net. Just imagine this vast net. Much like a spider's web in intricacy and beauty, it stretches out indefinitely in all directions. At each node or crossing point of the net hangs a single glittering jewel. Since the net itself is infinite in dimension, the jewels are infinite in number. The sparkling jewels hang there suspended and supported by the net, and they're glittering like the stars. Go out tonight after dinner and see the stars glittering in the heavens. Behind me then, of course, is what this magnificent jeweled net might look like, spread across the vast, expansive, infinite space. You can go online, find nets of Indra, all kinds of colorful jewels. This is more like pearls or water droplets, but let's think of them as jewels. Every gem in this web reflects all the other jewels in the net. Every jewel is connected with all the other jewels in the net. And in the same way, everything and every person is intimately connected with all other persons in the universe. Each has an independent place within the net, and we all reflect, and we all influence one another. So, whatever you do to one jewel affects the entire net, and it affects you as well. Whatever you do to one part of the spider web affects the entire web. Now, when I lived in the mid-coast of Maine raising the children, there was a beautiful field with tall grass separating us from the harbor. We go out there this time of year, late August, early September, and there's these huge spider webs in this tall grass, those big garden spiders with the yellow body, they're that big. and we'd catch them, put them in a little jar, and the kids would, look at them. And sometimes we'd touch the web, and we'd see the reverberation. The whole web would shake. And just if you touched it too hard, the web would break. In the same way, whatever you do to one strand, you or I do to one strand of life that extends throughout the entire Earth community, it affects everyone else, for better or for worse. So obviously, a destructive act of any kind can damage the entire net. But a simple act of kindness will send positive ripples across the infinite net, touching every jewel, every person, everything in existence. So this ancient Hindu and Buddhist myth is actually more than a metaphor. It describes the way the interdependent universe really works. I read a book, I was a philosophy major in college. The Austrian physicist Fritjof Capra wrote a classic, The Tao of Physics. He talks about this net of Indra as a physicist. Let me give you a few quotes to ponder. John Muir, the Scottish-born American naturalist, a zoologist, a glaciologist, a botanist, a philosopher, one of those towering intellects. But most importantly, I think, for those of us who love the national park, he was the father of the national parks in this country. What did John Muir say? When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. Everything's connected. Chief Seattle of the Suquamish people of Pacific Northwest, he said this in a letter. He wrote it in 1854. He called the president the Great White Chief in Washington, who was then Franklin Pierce. And, Franklin Pierce, we wanted to buy land. And to most Native Americans, that was just an alien idea. How can you buy or sell the sweetness of the air, the sound of the whippoorwill singing, the rustle of the pine forest? How can you buy land and sky? Just so alien to indigenous cultures. But Chief Seattle said this: humankind is not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things are interconnected. One day we may see that the white man and the red man may see that they are connected. And for those of you who are biologists, you can't go through your education without reading the acclaimed biologist Lewis Thomas, who says our bodies are shared, rented, and occupied by countless other tiny organisms, without whom we couldn't move a muscle, drum a finger, or think a thought. Our body is a community, and the trillions of non-human cells in our body are even more numerous than our human cells. Without them, we could not be here in this moment, he says. Without them, we wouldn't be able to think, to feel, to speak. There are, Lewis says, no solitary beings. We think we're these little entities walking around, unrelated to other things, not connected to the universe. That's not so. He says the whole planet is one giant, living, breathing cell. This is a biologist, an academic, with PhDs from all the schools you want to go to, like Harvard and Princeton. With all its working parts, everything is living together in what he calls symbiosis. And symbiotic relationships are often where the whole is greater than its parts, and you know this. You play a lot of sports here, whether it's field hockey, whether it's football, whether it's volleyball, softball, whatever it is, and you're in theater, you're in a musical, you're in a band, and when all the parts are functioning together in harmony, when somebody's not off on themselves on the solo trip, that's a symbiotic relationship, that the whole is greater than the parts. You've seen those all-star teams with the greatest players, and suddenly they can't win sometimes because they're all off on a solo trip. It's when we come together in harmony. The reason I bring this up, this metaphor about the net of Indra, is obvious. It's directly related to all of us here at Taft. In a very literal way, we live in a web of connections. Each one of us is a jewel in this web of connections, reflecting all other jewels. And it begins. Here's how it begins. All things begin this way. It begins with your thinking, your thoughts. Yes, your thoughts are the building blocks upon which you construct your attitude and your outlook on life. It's kind of the lens through which you see things. And those thoughts, as your building blocks, can be either positive or negative. I don't know. If you remember last week, I prefaced my prayer by saying there have been studies done. Go out on the internet. You can look and find them yourself. That we think about 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And unfortunately, 80% they found in these studies tend toward the negative. We tend toward the negative as humans for some reason, and particularly in the media culture we live in. We're bombarded with so much negative news through so many sources. So we dwell in the negative, and it's a little scary. So that's why it's important that you attend to your thoughts, attentiveness. I'm not using mindfulness here exactly, because I think attentiveness, being aware, awareness of your thinking process. You step back, because when in awareness you step back from your thoughts in your brain, and you're aware of them. So being attentive to them, because everything begins with your thinking. The great Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching, 2,500 years ago, said, watch your thoughts, because your thoughts become your words. Watch your words, because your words become your actions. Watch your actions, because your actions become your habits. Watch your habits, because your habits become your character. Watch your character, because your character becomes your destiny. And in the Buddhist Gospel of Light, my favorite text that I carry with me, the Dhammapada, the Dhamma, the way, the path, the footpath, pada, the footpath to follow. In the opening lines, chapter 1, there are the contrary ways, it says. It starts this way. With your thoughts, you create your universe. You create your universe with your thoughts. Think or act with a pure mind, or with good, with noble, with just, with caring, with loving thoughts, and joy will follow you as surely as your shadow. Conversely, the contrary way in that first chapter, those opening verses, is think or act with an impure mind, negative thoughts, hurtful thoughts, and a lot of times against yourself. We're too hard on ourselves. Gotta love yourself, not in an egocentric way, but a good, healthy self-identity, a love for yourself. Think or act, with these negative thoughts, and sorrow will follow you as surely as the cart follows the ox that draws it. So our thoughts, they give birth to our words give birth to actions, and then whatever we do affects the entire net, all these jewels that connect every one of us. We all know that when something happens in our family, wonderful or tragic, it impacts everyone. Not only our immediate nuclear family, but the entire extended family of grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, etc. It affects everyone. I feel I went through a incredible weekend of joy with my brother's oldest son's wedding. Beautiful day, just a little bubble of love, seeing cousins I hadn't seen in a while. To awake the next Saturday to my son-in-law's father dying suddenly Sunday, just a few years older than me. So this roller coaster, but the rippling effect, his father lives in Pueblo, Mexico. So the effect of people in Mexico to New England to New York, we're all deeply affected by that. We're affected by the wedding. So when good things, so right here, among the student body, faculty and staff, wonderfully terrific things happen all the time, and we need to celebrate them together. But when hurtful and mean things happen, in the community, it affects all of us. Kind of a downer, right? Much of the time, though, as I say, my Buddhist monk that I quote all the time, Thich Nhat Hanh, says, most of the time we don't have a toothache. Most of you don't have toothaches like us older folks, because you got good teeth and you had fluoride and all of that, right? But the toothache is an excruciating thing. Most of the time we don't have it. Most of the time we're not suffering. Most of the time things are going well. Things like the birth of a new child, such as Mr. and Mr. Parenti's young son, Ozzy Jr. But when someone does something that hurts another person, it can be just a word, it can be just a phrase spoken in ill intent. We all feel it in the community. It shakes the web. It damages our web connection. So you're going to hear a lot from other speakers about, in different ways, about creating a warm, welcoming, supportive community. Obviously, that's what we want to do here at Taft. We want to intentionally create a community where every member feels that they belong, where we realize how important and vital and necessary every single one of you is to sustain a healthy and vibrant community. And we want our community, Taft, to be a place where every one of you, where the seniors down here reach out to the lower mids up there and make connections. We get out of our little shells, right? We get out of our little comfort zones. We go meet people from different countries, cultures, religions, eat different food, listen to different music. We want to create that kind of crossover in our community, connecting with all kinds of people in the web. If we're on this side of the web, we want to go over there and see who's over there. So we want to create that kind of community where every one of you feels that you're supported, loved, and cared for, because you all, it's not cliche, it's true, you all bring gifts, talents, and graces to this school. that are absolutely necessary to make everyone's experience a meaningful and valuable one that strengthens our web of interconnection and makes it possible for all of us to flourish and succeed. We live with you too, faculty, staff, people in the kitchen, people working around the grounds. We all live together. So what I'm saying is two things here, and you're unique individuals, never been here before in the history of the world, never will be here again, and every moment you walk up, every moment is unique. See it that way. Life becomes richer. You're unique at the same time. We're interconnected. We're part of one another. We reflect one another. We influence one another in good and bad ways. Let's make it good ways, loving ways, compassionate ways, caring ways. So we have those two. In Zen, the expression in Zen Buddha, not one, not two. It's a kind of a paradox, but I think our minds and hearts can embrace paradox that way. Not one, not two. We're interconnected, part of one another, also uniquely individual. So lastly, I just want to say we're in the midst of the Jewish High Holy Days, so Yom Kippur services will be held at the temple in Southbury Thursday, 10 a.m. I was going to leave. So I need Jewish students here. Please contact me. I have to have a form that says you have COVID, proof of COVID shot. Check out with the duty office and wear a mask, of course. And so I need to report to the temple how many Jewish students will be coming, if you want to. But I'm thinking about that. I'm the chaplain here, Rev G. I teach classes like everyone else and coach some sports like everyone else and work in a dorm like everyone. But I also work with students who are religious. So if you're a Muslim, I've taken Muslims to the mosques periodically on Fridays, and we have a couple of mosques in Waterbury. We have a focus group for Christians, a Bible study, usually meet on Friday nights. We have a meditation group, can include all kinds of people, Buddhists or not. You don't have to be Buddhist to meditate. All traditions have a meditation type of thing. So Hindus, there's a Hindu temple near Wesleyan, not too far away. There are Sikh Gurdwaras in Southington. There are religious places, so I'll do what I can to connect you up. And there are churches. There are 4 churches in the area, Catholic and 3 Protestant churches. But if you need to go to another one, we'll try and find a way to get you there. I myself preach at a congregational church, the old Puritan church, of New England. I'm a congregational minister. It's over in Bethlehem. What a great name, Bethlehem, Connecticut, in a farming community. So you could come with me to church on Sunday morning. So anything about religious stuff, spiritual stuff, and if you want to talk about, I got a message from a faculty member saying, could we talk more about 9/11? Well, we talked a little bit about last week, but if there's something bothering you, upsetting you about related to that, to COVID, to anything in your life, I'm always available, okay? So have a great day. Blessings.